So the best way to put it together is to do it upside down. So bear in mind that everything we're doing now is upside down. Okay? Now, one thing to note, very important. This is the mounting rod. And if you look, you'll see that one side of it has got a groove routed out of it all the way along, yeah? See that groove routed out? That must face to the floor, downwards. But because this is upside down now, it will face up. So the routed slot faces up when you're putting it together and the whole thing is upside down. Otherwise, when it's turned the right way up, it'll face the floor. So, I'll zoom in to show you this. Now, take the rod with the routed out strip down it, and because we're upside down, it faces up at the moment, right? That goes over these two screws, or bolts, like that. Okay, with the slot facing up because we're upside down. Then you use this little spacer there. Okay, and put those two holes over those two bolts protruding out, like that. And then finally, your big adapter bolt goes through the middle like that. Be very careful not to strip the threads. Tighten it up. And when you get to the point where you're ready to give it a proper tighten, grip this rod to stop this hinge assembly twisting around when you apply pressure to this large gnarled sleeve thing. Right, so grab that rod and give it a last tighten. There we are, nice and firm. Now put it the right way up. Okay, and now you can see there it is the right way up if it gets in focus, and the slot is underneath. The slot routed out of that pole is underneath. So put it, the whole screen assembly down. Okay, I'll just zoom out now. And then the last bit is attaching the pole. And the best way to do that is to actually take the pole out of the stand, and then you just quite simply offer the pole into this large adapter hole like that, and being very gentle not to strip the threads. Only the lightest amount of finger pressure is required to twist this, and you just screw that in. Like that. Until you get to the point where it's ready to be tightened, then again grab that rod, give it a good tighten, give it a good twist, and then there's your assembled system like that, and then that pole just goes back into there, like that. And I'll put the pin in for now. Come on, where's the hole? There we are. And there's your assembled system. I'm actually going to use, I'll just raise it up a bit and use the tensioner on the pole. There we are, nice and firm. There's no movement or anything in that, it's absolutely solid. That's just the stand itself rocking. Alright, so that's how you put the mounting pole on. Next, I'll show you how to do it with just one mic. And for that, we're going to use one of these two stanchions, they're identical, and that, which we use for either a single mic or the stereo bar. So, what we do is, if we're not using the stereo bar, we do not need this screw or this bolt, so undo that, but keep it safe because you will need it for the stereo bar. On the other end is this gnarled bolt thing, which goes into the smaller hole of the two, and there's a pin sticking out of the end of that gnarled bolt. Yeah, you just see that little pin. Yeah. Okay, and the idea is that pin goes into the routed out slot along the bottom of this pole here. So you simply slide that over, but of course without this holding it vertical, it can rotate. So what you do is just put that into the small hole, and then once you do it just a couple of turns, it will go into the slot underneath this rod. There you go, and once it's in, it can't rotate around the rod anymore, and then you just tighten it up and it's nice and firm. Okay, so you just simply slide that in as far into the middle of the screen or out from the screen as you want and tighten it, and then on the end you simply place one of these stanchion things, right, And to do that, you undo this large gnarled bolt at the end. You only need this if you're using the stereo bar. And there, you've got another bolt sticking out. And that bolt simply goes into the larger hole on the top, like that. There we are. Da-da-da. That's it, done and dusted. Now on the top of that, there's a rotating collar here. And you can raise this up a bit like that, just to give it a few extra inches in height if you want. Okay, and on the top of that you've got a large size diameter microphone clip thread. Now you know what I'm talking about, but for noobs, there's an old, typical microphone clip, and they usually have these adapters in, so that it takes this big size hole to a smaller hole, and the smaller hole fits the normal mic stand type connector. Alright? And you get these adapters on all sorts of mic clips, whether it's the cheap ones like this for dynamic use, or here's a cradle without the elastic again. You get the adapter which fits in there. So you take the adapter out, and then you simply put your cradle onto that large thread like that, and then you just angle that over, tighten it up, and then that's it. And then you can move the whole assembly in or further out like that. And once you've got it where you want it, tighten it up, nice and firm. Yeah, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, and that's it. And then the barn doors open or close to give as much or as little shielding to the mic as required. Okay, fitting the stereo bar very quickly. Stereo bar, and we want that bolt that we had earlier, that small bolt. Take the stanchion off that slider and bolt through hole. Bolt goes into larger of the two holes on the block, like that. There we go, come undo up. And then that, the same as before, slides over the rod. You tighten it up. Like that. There's the bar, nice right angle. And then your two mic stanchions, you need these gnarled nuts now. They go through the slots and do up like that. One. And the other one's got the cradle on it, here it comes. Two. Like that, there they are. And obviously you distance them apart by just going like that to get them the right distance apart. And the whole assembly slides in and out by simply loosening this as before and sliding the whole assembly in and out. And remember, you've also got those little collars on there which can be useful. If you just loosen that, you've got a few inches of height adjustment. Okay, that's how you fit the stereo bar. Okay, so next let's take a look at the thing and try some audio examples and see how it actually works.